Welcome to Payoff, Pitch Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Collin Whitchurch, and I'm joined by Jim Turvey of Roto Grinders for a special bonus episode. Today, we're going to dive into the futures market. Now that we've made it to the month of June, Jim, it's been about a month since we last talked. We gave out a bunch of futures added to our portfolio there. Some are looking good, some not so good, and we're going to add to our portfolio a little bit more today. Again, it is Friday, June 6th. We'll do this again, I think, right before the All-Star break. The Friday before the All-Star break, we'll look to add to our portfolio once again. We're going to do things a little bit differently this time. Kind of tighten things up here a little bit. We went kind of category by category last month. There was so much more to talk about last time across the entire board. Today, Jim and I are going to give out our two favorite futures to add to our portfolio, and then we're going to have some more general discussion, some other bets we like or we're watching. Just to kind of set the scene here a little bit, we're going to talk player awards here to start. Jim and I both have a couple awards to give out. The major awards, what we're looking at here again at the start of June. The MVP races, the American League MVP race, not interesting. Aaron Judge is minus 6,000. These odds I'm giving out here right now are at DraftKings. Behind Aaron Judge, Bobby Witt Jr. is 25-1. Cal Raleigh, 30-1. And then you get down to Jose Ramirez at 90-1. Literally the fourth on the MVP odds board is 90-1 on June 6th. That's just how ridiculous Aaron Judge has been. National League, a little bit more interesting despite the presence of Shohei Ohtani. He's minus 270. And then you have Fernando Tatis Jr. 10-1. Pete Crow Armstrong, 12-1. Corbin Carroll, 14-1. We're going to talk a little bit more on NL MVP later. The Cy Young races, the favorite in the AL is Tariq Skubal at minus 150. The National League, it's Paul Skeens at minus 115. We're going to talk some Cy Young. And the Rookie of the Year market in the AL, Jacob Wilson is minus 425 in the AL and Rookie of the Year race. And the NL Rookie of the Year race, which is wide open right now, sees Drake Baldwin. That's our only plus money favorite in these major awards markets. Drake Baldwin is the favorite, Braves catcher, at plus 185 for NL Rookie of the Year. Jim, I've done a lot of talking here to open it, so I'm going to kick it to you for your first best bet in the futures market. It is from none of these awards markets, but it's another awards market, and it's one I like quite a bit.
Yeah, had to go deep diving here a little bit because, like you said, some of these major awards. I mean, yeah, AL MVP when the fourth favorite's like a 1% implied. Now, I think there is a lot of season left, but I also don't. There's not pathways that have opened up. So I went to MVP, didn't see a whole lot. Went to Cy Young, saw a couple. We'll talk about that later. But my favorite was actually one that has moved a fair amount. It was a really nice number about a week ago. But I still think there's a ton of value on this. It's Josh Hader, AL Reliever of the Year, plus 450. We are really digging in there now. We're in the Reliever of the Year award streets here. But this is a market actually that I had a really nice midseason hit last year. And I think that, it just isn't getting as many eyeballs. It's Reliever of the Year. It naturally is going to be a little bit less sharp than the rest. But I think he should actively be the favorite. He has a lower ERA, xERA, FIP, lower walk rate, more saves, higher strikeout rate, all of these than Andres Munoz. Now, all of it's pretty close. The two of them are, pretty much neck and neck. But especially for Munoz to be laying minus money, Hader at a plus 450 number here, I think that there's a ton of value on this bet. I don't think it will last super long. Hader does have a propensity at times to blow up, but the seasons he's running well, he tends to run really well. So Munoz has a slightly better stuff, but I think certainly not the gap to overcome all of the statistical edges that Hader has right now on a team that, those two teams that they're seeing their paths kind of flip from the last time we talked, unfortunately, when I was so high on Seattle. So I think this Hader at plus 450, I would play this down even to like the plus 200. Obviously, there's a lot of season left. And one of the things I'm going to talk about when it comes to Cy Young is how scary it is to be betting a favorite right now with pitchers' arms just exploding every week, basically. So, I don't want to be laying minus money on pitchers in general right now, but getting plus 450 on someone who I think should be the favorite. I'm going to be playing Josh Hader for AL Reliever of the Year.
If you're looking for Reliever of the Year markets, they're not available everywhere. They're not super widespread. Bet365 has Munoz is the favorite right now, minus 125. Hader, plus 450. Mason Miller of the A's is plus 550. John Duran of the Twins plus 900. And then you get down in the 20-1 and longer range. Felix Bautista, Aroldis Chapman, Carlos Estevez. Carlos Estevez, shout out to him. He had a blown save and a save yesterday for the Royals.
Skills.
Yes. You talked about laying minus money on pitchers and not liking to do that. Well, in the Cy Young market, if you want to bet the favorite right now, both of them are minus money. And that is where I'm going for my favorite future as we talk here at the beginning of June. And it's in the NL Cy Young market. It is Mackenzie Gore to win the NL Cy Young. He is 40-1 right now at DraftKings. You see him in the 30-1 to 40-1 range at most sports books. He just feels like the guy most likely to take the spot if something were to happen to Skeens. If he were to fall off, if he were to get injured, if the Pirates were to shut him down for any reason. Jim, you've done a lot of research into awards at various sports. People look for, when they're voting awards at the end of the year, they look for the black ink. They look for the strikeout leaders, the ERA leaders, the WAR leaders. Right now, Baseball Reference WAR, Mackenzie Gore's at 2.6. In the NL, that's second, behind only Skeens, who's at 3.3. Gore has a 2.87 ERA, and he leads the majors with 108 strikeouts. He threw 166 in the third innings last year, struck out 181. He's 26 years old, so right entering that like prime age where you're looking to like give him that workhorse like workload. At the end of the year, with good health, voters are going to look at the leaderboard and say, okay, he's number one in strikeouts if he stays there. He's near the tops in ERA. He's near the tops in wins above replacement. And he's going to throw probably 170 to 180, maybe even more innings. If he gets up in close to 200, that's also going to help his wins above replacement. When you look at the market of NL Cy Young contenders behind Skeens, it's like everyone has warts of some sort. I do not trust Yamamoto at all. Plus 350. Zach Wheeler, obviously. Zach Wheeler, Logan Webb are like the epitome of always contenders, never winners. Plus 850, plus 1300. You have Chris Sale, last year's winner. Hunter Green, Robbie Ray, Jesus. I mean, he keeps confounding me. I think that he's going to be terrible. And there's former Cy Young winner right there at 25-1. Kodai Senga, Chris Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Freddie Peralta, all ahead of Mackenzie Gore on the odds board. Right behind Gore, another guy I considered giving this out. We just talked about him on the Daily Bets episode. If you haven't listened to that yet, Spencer Schwellenbach sitting at 45-1. Pitching plus king, one of my favorite pitchers in baseball. So again, Skeens is the favorite for a reason. Minus 115 is not really sturdy legs to stand on. He's going to if Skeens pitches a full season. This is not groundbreaking analysis here. If Skeens pitches a full season and nothing crazy happens, he's going to win this award. He entered the year as the favorite. He's the favorite right now as we enter June. But given that it's the Pirates, given how young he is, given pitchers in general, if you're looking to bet Cy Young, you have to go down the odds boards because we saw it in the NBA with Victor Wembanyama. He was the defensive player of the year until he got injured.
Yep.
Paul Skeens is the NL Cy Young until he gets injured. I'm not going to wish or even try to forecast an injury upon anyone. The last thing in the world I would want to see is Paul Skeens injured. But it happens. It happens to pitchers. And if I look at this odds board, I say if something happens to Paul Skeens, who's the most likely to win NL Cy Young, it's Mackenzie Gore. 40-1 is way too good of odds. The Nationals aren't, they've been better than people expected this year, but they're not going to be playing for anything. They're just going to let their young kid go out there and do his thing. That's what they do. They're not the bad team that's like, oh, we need to treat him with kid gloves because he's our future or whatever. He's going to be 27 next year. They're spinning their wheels a little bit. They're going to let him go out there and do his thing. So, like Gore here at 40-1. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I actually the last point you made was kind of where I was thinking of. The Washington has shown a history of not like shutting folks down. They're like, yeah, well, we've got a good pitcher. Let's ride him into dust as we have like a 440 winning percentage. So when I looked at this market, I was very much with you. And the two names I wrote were Wheeler and Webb, and I said I couldn't quite get there with either of them at the numbers that they have, because they do have very much always the bridesmaid, never the bride type energy. When I look through the Cy Young market in general, like the history of that award, it really is like you have to be a top 2 in ERA, and like that's it. Like that's just like, and then qualify for innings, and if you have a decent K rate, that'll bump you over the edge. But it really is like an ERA thing. And Mackenzie Gore is right up there for ERA and some of the peripherals that would show, a future ERA as well. So I like that number at plus 4,000, and the Schwellenbach at plus 4,500 is interesting as well, for sure.
We're going to transition here to some team-based futures. Jim and I both like a couple of under-the-radar teams, maybe underperforming a little bit or overperforming, I guess, depending on your expectations, just to set the scene a little bit. World Series market right now, what you might expect: Dodgers are the favorites, plus 270, Yankees plus 550, Mets are plus 800, and then the Phillies and Tigers are plus 850. The divisional market, the Yankees are the AL East favorites at minus 575, Tigers minus 290, Astros minus 250, actually ahead of the Mariners now. Mariners are plus 150 for the AL West. In the NL, we have 3 other minus money favorites. The Mets are minus 130, slightly ahead of the Phillies at plus 120. The Cubs are minus 295 in the NL Central, and the Dodgers minus 575 in the NL West. I will get us started here. The team that I like, the futures that I like here that I've been eyeballing are the Boston Red Sox. One of the main reasons I like the Red Sox here is they've been the worst team in baseball this year in one-run games. They're 6-17 in one-run games. You talk about it a lot in every sport. In football, one-possession games, right? 6 points or fewer. NBA, I'm not sure what the cutoff is. Basketball, I'm not sure what the cutoff point is. Like one possession or fewer games. That there's a lot of luck, there's a lot of noise. That stuff evens out a little bit in the long run. Now in baseball, it can be a little bit more complicated than that, because the team can just have a bad bullpen and be blowing a lot of games like that. I don't know if that's necessarily the case with the Red Sox. Their bullpen hasn't been great, but I think that there has been a lot of noise in their pedestrian start to the season. They still have a positive run differential. Their Pythag record is a lot better than it is right now. And I think they're in a position to make a move here. There's a hodgepodge right now in the AL East. The Yankees are obviously front running. Orioles are a little frisky right now. I considered giving out the Orioles. I think Sean Zerillo and I talked a little bit about the Orioles on a podcast recently about the potential of buying in on them to make a run. But there's a lot of mediocrity in the American League as a whole. You talk about the 2 leagues. In the National League, you've got the Dodgers, and you've got the Cubs, and you've got the Mets and the Phillies. And in the AL, you've got like the Yankees, and the Tigers are better than people expected. And then it's like, every other team is just like fatally flawed. So some of these teams are going to have to, you can't only have 2 playoff teams in the American League. Some teams are going to be there, and I think Boston could be one. The vibes with Boston have been shaky. I think that's been a lot of the reason for some uncertainty there with the Rafael Devers stuff. Alex Cora not really communicating, the first base issues. But this team's still in the thick of things, despite having, the worst start to the season imaginable from guys like Brian Bayo, guys like Lucas Giolito. It's like, I trust them not to be like horses at the front of the rotation, but they're going to turn it around. The 5th starter spot has been a mess. But they have reinforcements coming, and they could get reinforcements. Roman Anthony, we keep waiting for him to get called up, the top prospect in baseball. They've called it Marcelo Meyer. Christian Campbell obviously started the year in the majors. The outfield defense is electric with Duran, with Rafaela, and with Abreu. Really like that defense. That's one of the reasons why I think Anthony hasn't come up yet. We're either just at, or we've either just passed or are about to hit the Super 2 deadline, so I would expect Anthony to be up really soon, in which case, it's going to be interesting to see how they work that in. Rafael is obviously elite in center field, but his bat has been questionable. But I really want to see what this front office does. A lot of people think they're going to punt this season. There were reports out there recently about the Padres being interested in Duran. First of all, I don't know why the Red Sox would trade him. Second of all, the Padres farm system is completely barren. I don't know what they're going to give up for Duran. But they they went hard in the offseason. They traded a whole bunch for Garrett Crochet. Kyle Teal, the top prospect they gave up in the Crochet deal, is making his major league debut tonight for the White Sox. They signed Alex Bregman. Yeah, it obviously hurt. Bregman's out for a little while. That's bad. But I think this team is a candidate to buy at the deadline, and they have some holes here that are they have some fillable holes. I couldn't think of any way to say it that doesn't any less stupid than that. They have fillable holes. You look at their rotation. Maybe Sandy Alcantara rejuvenation in Boston. That's a little bit intriguing. Andrew Heaney's out there for Pittsburgh. Very gettable, and they have the farm to get them. Their first base spot is completely devoid of talent now that Tristan Casas is out for the season. We're obviously not going to see Rafael Devers there. They're a first baseman in play. I don't know about interdivision trades, but Ryan O'Hearn would look pretty nice in Boston. First base, outfield type. Nathaniel Lowe for the Nationals, they decide to sell. Ryan McMahon, I don't know if the Rockies are ever going to trade anyone ever again for the rest of history, but Ryan McMahon would look pretty nice in Boston. This team has the potential to make some moves. Obviously, we're betting on some plus money teams, some teams that are outside the playoff race looking in right now. They're plus money for a reason. But the Red Sox to make the playoffs right now are plus 330. Baseball Prospectus actually has their playoff odds way lower than that. And Fangraphs isn't quite as bullish either. I'm going against the projections here a little bit, and I'm just kind of forecasting improvement based on what I think this front office could and will do. So plus 330 to make the playoffs, I really like. And if you're going to bet them to like the playoffs, to win the AL pennant all the way at 28-1, I'll throw some couch change on that as well. Because again, the mediocrity of the American League is such that if you're not betting the Yankees, you're not betting the Tigers. You're looking to sprinkle a little bit on all of these other potential contenders and see what shakes out in October. So that's where I'm at. Jim, you're going to like a kind of similarly positioned team, probably in a little bit better position than the Red Sox right now, and you're looking kind of at a similar type angle with a team in the National League.
Yeah, moving from Heimblum's old team to Heimblum's semi-new team, where he's splitting front office duties right now. I will say I like the Boston stuff. So they were a team that before the season I really liked. And I honestly haven't seen all that much reason to get off of it. It seems like that if you sim this season, a bunch of times, this is like maybe a 10th percentile outcome. And that looking forward, they definitely could be live in like you said, a very open and weird AL. Yeah, I instead went over to the NL for my shopping, and I can't believe this. I hate this team. I'm just gonna say I genuinely hate this team. Their fans annoy the hell out of me. They annoy me that they won't just fade away. They're like this gross team that like I never want to bet on. But man, I'm kind of coming around on the Cardinals again, which I can't believe I'm here. I will say for a long time, one of my favorite edges in the futures market was just betting Rays front office teams to outperform their win total. It was like it had an absolutely absurd hit rate. You just follow all of the people that were in the Rays front office and then went to their new teams and they made the improvements and they would beat the market. Now it seems like there's now Rays people in like maybe every front office. It is like one of the most impressive Bill Belichick coaching trees type of like just spread out all over the league now. And Heimblum is like kind of splitting front office duties right now, but whatever they're doing in St. Louis, it's kind of working already. They've got really good record against over 500 teams. Now that the Cubs in general, you and I are both very high on the Cubs. We talked about it on our daily bets today. So I don't love a division here, but I think that the floor for this Cardinals team is really good. They have a top 10 easiest schedule remaining. They're just like really solid. They're 9th by FIP, 11th by weighted runs created plus, 3rd by Fangraphs defense. They're just doing the thing where just really solid, really boring, and they're going to hang around. Mason Wynn is really coming into his own. I'd really love to see that. Lars Nootbaar and Brendan Donovan having really great years that don't look that all that unsustainable. They have really good catcher combo behind the plate. This is all happening without like the only like big names on the team doing all that much. Nolan Arenado and William Contreras. I think William is in Milwaukee. It's Wilson. No,
Wilson.
It is
Wilson. Yeah, is the Cardinals. That former
yes,
Wilson.
Yes, Wilson. That's like the West Belts in the WNBA. I can never keep track of which one is on which team. There's a little bit of nerves. Matthew Liberatore, do we have official word on the injury that had him come out of the game last night? If you can look that up while I'm talking here. Sonny Gray, though, is a super solid number one. Miles Mikolas, Eric Fetty, Andre Piante. These are disgusting names that are just going to post like 4.5 ERAs, not really blow up, keep you in the game. Yeah, top 10 bullpen by FIP. there's just not really weak spots. Now, the NL in general, I don't know if I love the ceiling of this team, but with the way baseball is set up in general, if you can get to the postseason, anything's live. Right now, they're at plus 165 to make the postseason. My favorite way to bet, though, is just over 84.5 wins, because I really think this is a floor team. They're just going to get to like 87 wins. I even looked at, was debating betting Marmol for coach of the year, because I think that if this team reaches its ceiling, it is overperforming what was, a lot of people were out on this team before the season. It wasn't a super long number, and I think Council is an accurate favorite. Do you have the Liberatory news? Do we have anything official?
Uh, they said it's fatigue, which is good news. He's dealing
Okay.
with fatigue. He was pitching in relief a lot last year. The headline here is unconcerned after early
Oh,
exit.
well,
So there
that's
you
good,
go.
because he
Yeah,
has been excellent.
he just was tired.
Yeah, he just need to take a little nap, and then
Yeah.
he'll be back in 5 days. He has really broken out. He's a guy who Heimblum knew over in Tampa Bay in their prospect system, and he's been excellent. Really cool to see him break out. So I can't believe I'm here. You and I talked about how much less there was on the futures board this time, and when I was like, man, I'm giving out Cardinals futures. This is like the most depressing. Like, truly, like, man, we gotta get to the next round of things. But there's honestly a lot to be intrigued by with them. And they do just have a history of doing this. And then if you add whatever Cardinal Devil magic they have, plus Heimblum, who I thought got such a raw deal in Boston, I thought he really honestly did a really good job for an ownership group that didn't want to spend money, and it set them up really well for the future. I think that's a really good combination. They could even be looking to potentially get stuff at the deadline. So I really like the Cardinals, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. But I think especially their floor with those 84.5 wins, I'm going to be betting that and logging that in the app today.
Yeah, the Cardinals are a funny team. I kind of expected, entered the season looking at kind of the players that they might potentially sell at the deadline.
Yeah.
Now it'll be interesting to see what they add. But their rotation is like the epitome of that meme. Slap of the roof a car. You can fit so many number 4 starters into this thing. With respect to Sonny Gray, obviously, and maybe Liberator, but like Eric Fetty and Palante and Miles Michaelis. It'll be interesting to see, because they don't really have any like minor league reinforcements necessarily coming down the pipeline. I'm not sure how far from the majors. No, Tink Hens is in Double A. That Tink Hens and Takoro Roby are like their 2 big pitching prospects, and I don't think we're going to see either of them this year. But yeah, their lineup is just solid. Ivan Herrera has really broken out this year.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Mason Wynn fan. It's going to be interesting to see if Victor Scott's bat comes back around. I have a most steals ticket on him and an NL Rookie of the Year ticket on him, I believe. Big fan of his. But they're just kind of a solid team, top to bottom. Brendan Donovan is he going to be an all-star this year? Like,
He would
legitimately.
be the most Cardinals all-star of just like, wait, Brendan Donovan was, and you look and you're like, wow, the stats are there, and they're like, it's not really all that fluky. He's been genuinely very good this year.
Yeah, and like Lars Nootbaar was a guy who I feel like 2 or 3 years ago was Brendan Donovan,
Yeah.
and now he's like legitimately like above average major league regular. Like, you just expect him, like he's someone you target in like fantasy baseball and stuff. Lars freaking Nootbaar. Anyway, I love that on the Cardinals. It's funny, when we were doing our research for this, we didn't really give out what we were going to give out on this episode before we locked it in stone. And I was like looking at team futures, and I almost marked down the Cardinals, and then I pivoted to the Red Sox. So we're in lockstep there a little bit. Let's go on to a couple other discussions. We have some win totals, we have some Cy Youngs, we have some MVP. I really want to talk about NL MVP with you. We both have some thoughts on this award, even if we don't have outright bets to give. Again, as I mentioned, Shohei Ohtani is the favorite to win NL MVP. He remains what everyone expected from him. He's minus 270. Fernando Tatis Jr. 10-1, Pete Crow Armstrong 12-1, Corbin Carroll 14-1, and PCA's teammate Kyle Tucker 15-1. Everyone else is 25-1 or longer. I want to talk about Pete Crow Armstrong because I live in Chicago. I live 3 or 4 miles from Wrigley Field, so I hear a lot about the Cubs, obviously, despite being a fan of their crosstown rival. Pete Crow Armstrong is incredible. I was very, very wrong. I'm going to just say right now, I was very, very wrong about Pete Crow Armstrong entering this year. I was like, are they really relying on him in center field? Didn't think his bat was going to hold up. I thought we were looking at Jared Kelenic 2.0. Failed traded Mets prospect who fails on his new team. Obviously, very wrong about that. But there's been a lot of talk lately about, Justin Steele, injured Cubs ace, had a tweet, PCA is the MVP. Everyone's PCA is the MVP. PCA is incredible, but like, I'm struggling to figure out what any of these guys could do. So I talked to NL. I'm going in circles here a little bit. NL Cy Young, I talked about. You bet on guys assuming something might happen to the top guy. In the NL MVP market, you're like, okay, yeah, something could happen to Ohtani. If Ohtani stays healthy the whole year, taking the pitching out of the equation, if he just stays healthy as a hitter all year, is it possible for someone like Pete Crow Armstrong, or someone like Fernando Tatis Jr., Corbin Carroll, or whoever you want to talk about to overtake Ohtani? Like, what kind of performance would it take? PCA is an MVP candidate because he's so high up the WAR leaderboard, because he's such an elite defensive center fielder. His bat has been very, very good, but like, it's not in the same country as Shohei Ohtani's, with all due respect. I'm just trying to figure out what a guy like PCA or anyone else could do to win MVP over Shohei Ohtani, lacking a, Ohtani injury.
Yeah, I think it's maybe more feasible. I think there's a couple of things. Voter fatigue, we've talked about this, definitely isn't as real in baseball, but it is a little bit of a thing. It definitely is. It can exist to a degree. And he does, as they roll him out there as DH, that's like a pretty big uphill battle to carry that WAR. Now, he's good enough that he still manages to have an incredible WAR despite coming from the DH spot. But the WAR battle is what we're really looking at here. The MVP has really become, control sort WAR leaderboard. And so if PCA is able to sustain, because right now he's got the power, the speed, and the defense, which is basically the three component and the positional adjustment, that's what's going into WAR. So he's able to hang around with Ohtani. Now, whether he's able to actually sustain that's a tougher question. But I do think you want to look at the positional adjustment. And do you mind if I soft launch into the name that I want to talk about here?
Do your thing.
Because the name I was going to give out until we got some news, I think it was on Wednesday at this point, that he had a broken toe. Now he is going to play through it, but it's Francisco Lindor at 40-1 right now. So I was pretty interested. And this is another, positional adjustment. Shortstops are going to collect a lot of WAR. That's just what they do. And he's basically in the conversation WAR-wise with Ohtani and Corbin Carroll, whose name we haven't talked about as much, but is again in that, he has the positional thing, he has the speed, he has all that. Lindor has done this despite kind of a whatever BABIP, and he's quietly a really big second half splits guy. So for his career, his OPS is 52 points higher after the All-Star break than before, and it's been really extreme in his New York days. So if we go season by season, 2021, he had a 698 OPS first half, 813 second half. Now that one was fewer games, but you'll see the pattern here. 2022, 756 to 830. 2023, 798 to 817. Last year, 784 to 943. Last year was bananas. That's what reminded me to kind of look at this. And it has literally been every season is improved, often by almost 100 points. Now, this year, he's got an 854 OPS before the break. And now maybe I'm reading into things, and we can flip a coin 4 straight times and get heads, and it's a coincidence. But it is a thing that some players have in their career, and it has been a sustained thing for Lindor, especially in New York. New York heats up in the summer. New York is one of those colder spots in the spring that actually does have a kind of weather as you go on in the year. It has like a pretty notable difference. So if he's got this 854 OPS as the pre-All-Star break, if this pattern continues, he really could get in the range where he's hanging around WAR-wise. He could hit the gas pedal and really take off. So if he's at 40-1, I think he is a name that could overtake Ohtani, even if Ohtani stays healthy. The other thing about the Ohtani thing, and again, when we talk about these injuries, we never want it. There's no world in which we want to see Skeens hurt. There's no world in which we don't want Ohtani out there every single day. But as they start to get him pitching more and more, it does just bring in more risk. Like he isn't going to be pitching, I don't think, in games, probably not this year. Maybe they soft launch in like September or something. But even if he's just doing bullpens, he's probably been doing that, but he's relaunching. He's building up on that side of things to get to that level. And that's always like a little bit scary if you're a Dodgers fan. Now, again, he's an incredible human that like has managed to do this and not get hurt often. So I don't want to overstate that, but I think combined with all this other stuff for Lindor, if it wasn't for the toe, this was going to be a best bet. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple days. I don't think the number's going to shrink all that much, and maybe potentially getting on it if it looks like he's able to handle this. I mean, Aaron Judge before the season, they were telling us about his toe, and look at Aaron Judge. Like you can play through
Mookie Betts just recently. He's back already.
So there are things these athletes that are superhuman are able to play through that, like, you and I would have been like, curled up in bed if I broke my toe for a week. Yeah. So I'm certainly not playing, professional baseball. So these guys are just built a little different, but I think that there's a lot of factors there that have me pretty interested at a really long shot on Lindor there.
You look at Baseball Reference wins above replacement right now. The reason the PCA crowd is so loud, or maybe it's not loud and it's just proximity for me. Baseball Reference wins above replacement. Aaron Judge is at 4.9. It's a win higher than everyone else in baseball. Second is PCA, 3.9. Yeah. But third is Jeremy Pena at 3.8. If I lived in Houston, would I hear Astros fans yelling about Pena being a contender for AL MVP over Aaron Judge like I hear Cubs fans yelling about PCA being a contender for Ohtani? If you look at now, the rub is, again, we talked about defense. The defensive WAR, PCA and Jeremy Pena are both 1.2. Ohtani obviously has nothing. Offensive WAR, Judge is 1 at 4.8. Ohtani's 2 at 3.1. Ohtani's 0.2 higher than PCA in offensive WAR. So again, if there's voter fatigue, Lindor, by the way, Lindor's 2.6. He's 0.3 behind PCA in offensive WAR. His defensive WAR is 0. I don't know how good his defense has been this year, how much the advanced metrics graded out, but Baseball Reference WAR does not like it, at least. They don't say it's negative, which is a good thing, but they don't say it's positive. Cal Raleigh is the guy. I wanted to figure out a way to talk about Cal Raleigh on this podcast, and I'm going to do it right now, even though I didn't write it down on the doc. Because Cal Raleigh is, I was like, I want to bet Cal Raleigh to win AL MVP, but I can't,
realistically.
He's plus 450 to lead the majors in home runs, though, and I'm kind of interested in that. The thing that I want to talk about that's not actually futures focused is Cal Raleigh on a Hall of Fame trajectory?
Ooh, okay. I love this take. I mean, he has genuinely been, like, if it wasn't for Judge, he's probably winning MVP. He has been so good. And catcher winning MVP, that's probably alone enough to get you at least in the conversation when it comes voting time.
Yeah, I mean, he is gonna have. He's at 3.6 Baseball Reference WAR right now. After the last 3 years were 4.7, 3.4, 3.9. We're looking at like a 6-win season out of him. He's going to become so that plus 450 bet's interesting to lead the league in home runs. Judge is plus 120, Ohtani's plus 150, Raleigh's plus 450, Schwarber's plus 750. Everyone else is 50 to 1 or longer. Can you name 2 catchers have led the majors in home runs? Trivia time.
Johnny Bench.
Yes.
And it wasn't Pudge, was it?
No.
Give me a decade.
This decade.
Oh. Now I almost weirdly would have done better with the history. Now I'm like, oh God, I don't know. Who was it?
It was Salvador Perez. He hit 48, tied with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And that's the record for home runs by catcher. No catcher has ever hit 50 home runs in a season. 48 by Sal Perez. Again, a little bit of caveat there. He played a lot of DH that year.
Yeah.
Cal Raleigh's playing a lot of DH this year, but primary position of catcher. He's going to become the first catcher to hit 50 home runs in a season this year, health pending. He's got 24 right now. He has a OPS plus of 194. So I just want to throw that out there a little bit. Plus 450 to lead the league in home runs isn't like a hammer spot for me, but it's something that I'm interested in. And if you want to play the AL MVP market, if you're playing the like Judge is going to miss a month angle, which Judge could miss a month and still win MVP, if we're being
Still
honest.
run away with the war lead.
Raleigh would be my dude. Like I'm obsessed with that guy.
Yeah.
He's the best catcher in baseball. He plays in Seattle. Nobody talks about him, I feel like, and it drives me insane. Anyway, I digress. We've got a couple other things to talk about here. I'm going to jump over to the AL Cy Young market since we've been talking about awards. You have a take on the AL Cy Young. Again, just to set the stage here a little bit, Scooble is our favorite, -150. If you want to hear some negative talk about Tariq Skubal, I encourage you to listen to today's daily betting episode of Payoff Pitch, where myself, Jim Turvey, and Derek Carty came up with myriad ways to fade the best pitcher in baseball against the Chicago Cubs today. Anyway, he's the favorite to win AL Cy Young for a reason. Garrett Crochet is +650. Hunter Brown is +750. Max Fried +800. All of these at DraftKings. So Jim, what's up? What's up with the AL Cy Young for you?
Yeah, so I mean, the way we are seeing pitchers get injured right now, it really is. I do think you can sprinkle in some long shots throughout the season. And like again, Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball. It's very ironic that all of us found a way to fade him in the daily best bets, but he is a pitcher who throws really hard. Pitchers that throw really hard are just at risk, and we are in the grand scheme of things very early in the season right now. So there's a couple of names that caught my eye. This market in general, I was like, man, there's a lot of names that intrigue me here. So I'll start with the longest of shots, which probably is not going to happen. It's 100-1, but this is a name who quietly, should we, you know what? Let's you and I love like springing little quizzes on each other. Guess Drew Rasmussen's career ERA.
Oh, I love Drew Rasmussen. I was giving out a little side story. Before I joined my Dynasty Baseball League, I was my buddy's kind of like prospect whisperer. And when he was in the Brewers system, I said, you know, these minor league rosters in this Dynasty League are like 15 players deep. So you draft a lot of minor leaguers. And I said, keep an eye on Drew Rasmussen. Pick him up if you can. And he went to CBS's website, which is the fantasy host. They didn't even have Drew Rasmussen in their system. That's how early I was in on Drew Rasmussen. Career ERA, okay, let's say I own him in one fantasy league. I know he's very good. I might undershoot here. I'm going to say like 3.2.
2.82 career ERA. And here's his last 5 seasons. 2.84, 2.84, 2.62, 2.83, 2.14. He has never had a season over an ERA of 3. And again, if this is an ERA award, now listen, he's gotten a little bit lucky by left on base percentage and BABIP this year. He'll have an uphill battle on the K rate and the innings pitched because he's always kind of like, you know, a 5 1/3 type of guy.
And he's a Ray, and they're not going to.
He's a Ray, yeah, exactly. He's not going to have quality starts, but he has really good stuff, and it's just the history of just being in this. Like he will be in the conversation for ERA to leader as long as he stays healthy. There's a reason it's 100
qualifies.
If he qualifies, yeah. But it's getting closer and closer to you don't even have to qualify for the ERA crown to win. I think Blake Snell won the Cy Young with like 166 innings, maybe. I think you need 162 to qualify.
162, yeah.
So you really can, if you have a great dazzling ERA. Now he's not going to have the strikeouts that Snell had, and that is kind of like there could be a world where Rasmussen leads the league in ERA at like 2.4. But then there's a pitcher at 2.8 with a ton of strikeouts, and they go with him because it's like, you know, that is the tiebreaker.
Yeah, Skubal's at 2.4 and strikes out 230 batters.
Exactly, yeah. If we're at the point where we're down to a tiebreaker between, you know, like Rasmussen's top 2, this 100-1 ticket has paid for itself. So that was
absolutely
the long shot that caught my eye. Then the middle tier, Carlos Rodon. So one thing I like to do when I'm looking through these is find pitchers with, you know, an ERA that kind of checks every box. I guess I should say metrics that check every box: the ERA, the xERA, the FIP, the xFIP, and the DRA, or in the CFIP. There's so many different things you can look at, right? But the point being that someone who all of these advanced metrics agree is a really solid pitcher, and Carlos Rodon is in that tier. It's really Skubal, Hunter Brown, and Rodon. They're the pitchers that check every box across here. Carlos Rodon also has the second best K rate among qualified American League pitchers. He really has been pitching very well. And 30-1, the more I dug in, I thought there were maybe a few question marks here, a couple of warts, as you like to say. So it's not a best bet, but be monitor the situation with Carlos Rodon.
40-1 at DraftKings. He's in the Mackenzie Gore range right there.
That makes it more interesting. That implied odds, that's not all that different. But we've talked about how with long shots, you can kind of leverage implied odds not being all that different, but the payout being a lot bigger. So 41 definitely makes me more interested. And then there's kind of a middle tier shot with a name who, historically is like a very big name in here. And the health is obviously going to be a question with him. The health is a question with all these pitchers. He's at 18-1 right now. There's a great article by David Adler on Baseball Savant about how Jacob deGrom's arm angle has changed mid-season here, and how he's the type of pitcher who is always, tweaking his process, improving hhis process. So his first 3 starts were pretty, okay. He was working himself back. Since then, he's had 9 starts, 11 runs allowed, 1.181 ERA. This is basically, it's not the crazy strikeout, crazy stuff, but it's like 90% of it. So he's basically a strikeout inning. He's got a little bit of luck on left on base and BABIP. But this is a guy who has the name recognition. Like if Drew Rasmussen is, in the ERA title, it's going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle. DeGrom is a name who, if DeGrom's in the conversation, he gets that, oh, okay, Jacob DeGrom, like he's leading the league in ERA, that he deserves to be in the Cy Young conversation. So I liked all 3 of those guys. I didn't love any of them, but there's going to be 3 that I might just sprinkle a little bit all right now. Skubal's great, but again, we have a long season left, and there's every pitch a pitcher throws, especially at 100 miles an hour, is like, it's a little bit of a ticking time bomb. So I think having minus numbers on these Cy Youngs, the books kind of have to do it, but it's also a very scary, proposition for a bettor to do that. And I think we can leverage that by betting some of the long shots that are out there right now.
I love this. If you listened to our episode a month ago, Jim and I were both very high on Cole Reagans. We added his name to our portfolio. Obviously, that has not gone great. He spent a lot of time injured.
He returns today, though, right?
He returned last night, actually, and it was game 2 of the doubleheader against the Cardinals.
Right.
It was middling results, but there's some time there. But again, when we're giving out these futures, it's about creating a value-based portfolio. So if you're sitting here and you have a Reagan's ticket right now, maybe from the preseason, I gave out Logan Gilbert in the preseason. Maybe you have Reagan's and Gilbert, and you had DeGrom, you had Rodon, you had Rasmussen to your portfolio. Again, you have a lot of dart throws there for if something were to happen to Tarek Skubal. Again, maybe this bit will get worn out before too long, but do you know who leads the majors in Baseball Reference WAR among pitchers? This is a name that I was hoping you were going to bring up.
Baseball Reference, is it Max Fried?
No. It's Chris Bubic.
I swear to God, that was the other name I was going to say.
Chris Bubic has been incredible. Like, yeah. I don't think, to be clear, I'm not giving out Chris Bubic at 20-1 for an AL Cy Young. I feel like 20-1, the value's gone. I wish I had gotten in. I guarantee you in the preseason he probably wasn't even listed. 200-1. Yeah. And I don't necessarily expect Bubic to keep this up. He, again, Baseball Reference WAR, he's ahead of Skeens. He's 3.5. Skeens is 3.3.
I think his ERA is like 1.43 or something right now.
Yeah, he leads the major. He leads the league in ERA. He leads the league in ERA plus. His ERA plus is 2.86. Jim.
Wow.
But the other black ink he has that is kind of the fallible one is his homers per 9 is 0.4. That's not going to continue. He pitches in Kansas City. Obviously, a lot of home run suppression, but he's allowed 3 home runs in 75 and a third innings. Bubic is interesting to me. But again, I think we missed the boat on him, unfortunately. He would have been a great ticket to add about a month ago. I have a couple of team-based futures that I want to talk about, get your take on. We talked a lot about the Orioles on a couple of different podcasts about them, where to get them, where to play them. I actually bought in on them in the make the playoffs market a few weeks ago, kind of a long shot dart throw. But the way that might be smarter to play them. As we're talking about the Orioles, to be clear here, they are 25-36. They've won 6 games in a row to get to 25-36. It was like a week ago they were playing the White Sox and they had one more win than the White Sox. They're now 25-36. They're 13 games back in the AL East race. They have a minus 87 run differential, and they are 7.5 back in the AL wildcard race. 7.5 isn't that much.
Nope.
The Blue Jays and Rays are tied for the last AL wildcard spot. So anyway, I bought in on their make the playoffs market. I don't think the value is necessarily there to the point where I would want to give that out today. But when I was looking around the futures market, their win total right now is at 71.5. And I do think there's some value in the over there. They need to win. They have 101 games left. They need to win 47 of them. I should have written this down. I'm doing math at the last second. If the point is, I think the Orioles could play like a 500 team the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Their pitching was as bad as a pitching staff could be in the first half of the season. I think that their pitching is obviously still a problem. It's why they are where they are right now. But it was like we talked about, like percentile outcomes. It was like a 10th percentile outcome for a lot of these guys. They are going to get better results from there. And all of their young hitters are starting to hit. Adley Rutschman's starting to come around a little bit. There was something seriously wrong with him in the first half. Gunnar Henderson also starting to come around. And if this team is a 500 team the rest of the way, they're cashing the over on this win total. And they could do even more than that. I think that the idea of them making the playoffs is pretty outlandish, but it's not impossible. The idea of them going 72-90 or whatever, the 72-90, very, very feasible. So I like the over on that win total. On the flip side,
real quick, if I can, this was going to be on my list. The only reason I didn't talk about it today is because you guys talked about it on the other episode. I when I listened to you guys, I opened the app, I bet it right away. I definitely think it's a look, and I agree with, I can't remember if it was you or Sean who it was talking about, like the ceiling for this team is still vaguely intriguing. So I think you're here for the floor today because you guys already kind of talked about the ceiling, but as you mentioned earlier, the AL is pretty wide open. I really do think you do the full escalator here. You can hit the floor looks good, but I also like the middle rungs and even the higher rungs. I think it is betting these teams never feels good. That's why it's tricky. That's why it's a long plus number. But I think the Orioles very much could be the team that we look back on like, wow, this is a crazy story of the season. They've really flipped things around because the talent is absolutely there.
It was the Nationals, the 2019 Nationals, story all over. I think that I looked this up a while ago. I don't remember exactly what it was, but the Nationals weren't quite as bad, and their turnaround started a little bit earlier than this Orioles supposed turnaround has started. But it's still
they were
like
25-34 or something.
Yeah, it was like they were 9 games under 500.
Yeah.
The Orioles were like 20 games under 500. Staying in that same region, though, on the flip side, the other win total I was looking at is the Phillies under 95.5. They would essentially need to, again, 100 games left, and they would need to win of like 60 of those games, 59 of those games to cash this over. The Phillies are a team that I was down on entering the season. They obviously are still a very good baseball team. They're a game and a half behind the Mets in the NL East. They are 37-25. Their run differential is only plus 18, which is kind of pedestrian. I could see, the Braves. The Braves are right there in run differential. Obviously, they need to fix their bullpen. But I'm going to keep assuming a downfall from Philadelphia, and maybe I'm going to be early on it. Their roster is getting old. Aaron Nola was terrible this year and now is injured. Zach Wheeler, he's great. Chris Sanchez had a strange injury that they decided wasn't that much of an injury.
I was going to talk about this in this cap too. Yeah, I've been trying to fade him in certain spots because it seems like he's pitching through something like very strange.
Yeah, and Jesus Luzardo has been a shell of himself the last couple starts too. Schwarber's having the season of his life at the age of like 32 or 33, whatever. He's a lot younger than you think
Yeah.
that he's like Castellanos' age. I think he's a little bit younger than that. And JT Realmuto is just kind of what he is now at this point, like a league average catcher, maybe a little
Yep.
above. But they're an old team. They're a very old roster. The one thing that scares me about this betting this under is that there's no more aggressive front office at the trade deadline than Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah.
We've seen McAble come up already. It's going to be interesting to see if and when Andrew Painter comes up. Andrew Painter's either going to come up or he's going to be used in a trade chip to get whoever the best pitcher available is on the trade market. So that's possible. They desperately need a center fielder. Luis Robert Jr. has been terrible for the White Sox, but like he would look really good patrolling center field for the Phillies, especially defensively. Maybe they rejuvenate his offense playing around all of these elite hitters. They could be a buyer, and that would worry me. But as things stand with this team right now, playing in this competitive division, playing in the National League with all of these other most of the best teams in baseball, I'm down on this team. I didn't actually look at their missed playoffs odds.
I'll buy you a second by giving my thoughts. Overall I like fading the Phillies. My only thought here about missing the playoffs too, and this was actually I meant to talk about this in the Cardinals cap. I got to plant my flag here on being the Braves skeptic. I think everyone here is like very pro Braves bounce back. I think that there's some concerns here. Like Michael Harris, I say this because I bet him every year. I'm like, this is the year Michael Harris
hits leader, right, or something like
some
that.
point, yeah, at some point he's telling us who he is. The numbers, the advanced numbers, even really don't like him this year. Ozzie Albies, not so much. The bullpen is a mess. I think this Braves team is actually not going to like. I was looking at Braves not to make the postseason. The number wasn't quite good enough for me to get there, but I think I like the Phillies win total under more than miss the playoffs. Like I think that the miss the playoffs has some of the Braves baked in. So
Right.
that was part of my Cardinals thing was some Brave skepticism, which doesn't necessarily go against the Phillies win total under, but might be a little trickier path to miss the playoffs in general.
Braves right now make playoffs plus 220. Miss the playoffs minus 280. I don't.
Yeah, see at that point, I'm like, oh well, okay, maybe I'm just surrounded by action people interested in them when the market in general is pretty out.
Yeah, but like you're not betting no on them.
Exactly.
I'm not betting no on them at minus 280. Like that.
No.
That doesn't scream. Phillies miss the playoffs is plus 500.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. I still think I like the win total under more.
Same.
But I could maybe be talked into sprinkling there. Again, I haven't line shopped this. I'm looking at DraftKings right now. Maybe there's a better number out there than plus 500. But yeah, the Phillies. That's the NL team I'm looking to fade. A lot of good teams in the National League. Do we have anything else?
No, I think honestly, it's funny. You and I were talking about like, oh, there's not that much.
Randy Rodriguez. You want to talk about Randy Rodriguez?
You're right. There is one final thing. Look at that. We even had one final thing. I wanted to quickly shout out. So I was looking at AL reliever of the year, and that was like, and we gave out Hader. And then on the NL side, it's really open. And so open that I started like just digging into random middle relievers. But Randy Rodriguez on San Francisco, I wish we could bet this guy somehow. You and I have talked about how there's players you just love and you want to bet them somehow. Like I want to buy stock in this player, right? And so let's start a campaign to get this guy. I know you can request books to add him, but I want to keep an eye on it because he only just got his first career save. But if you look at the numbers he has put up this year, again, it's 28 innings. We're talking very small sample. But the numbers are just patently absurd what he's been doing right now. I guess if you have a fantasy league that has saves and holds, definitely go grab him or something. But overall, let me get to his numbers here. He's got a 0.64 ERA, 1.56 xERA, 1.07 FIP, 1.77 xFIP. And these relievers come and go a little bit. We see, like who's the reliever of the month kind of type deal. But I just think that the stuff plus is 117, the pitching plus 117. An arm that in that Giants bullpen, I just really am interested by. I gave out before the season Ryan Walker to lead the league in saves. He hasn't been it. That hasn't been the play so far. Camilo Doval's in that role, but if Randy Rodriguez could pick up, a dozen saves by the end of the season and maintain this crazy ERA, FIP, xFIP that he's got. The NL reliever of the year award it's a little bit open right now. So if we could get like a 100-1 ticket on him or something, I'd be all over that. So just wanted to shout out a truly obscure reliever before we got out the door here.
Jim sent me the bets he was looking at a couple days ago, and he said his line was, "I really wish there was a way I could bet Randy Rodriguez."
Yep.
I follow baseball very closely, as you might imagine. I watch every game I can every day. I'm in multiple fantasy leagues. I bet on it. I'm on a podcast where I talk about baseball. And when he said that, I had to Google who Randy Rodriguez was. He was a blind spot, and you know what I did after I looked him up? I went and picked him up in my league that has saves plus holds as a
Yep.
category. And then I started looking at the reliever of the year market, and there was a name I was going to give out, but that was in similar vein to Randy Rodriguez, but the number was too short on him already, and it's Will Vest of the Tigers.
Oh, wow.
He's kind of
Yeah.
the American League's version. But first of all, the American League reliever, all the elite relievers are in the American League.
Yeah.
Second of all, he's already down to 25-1. So I didn't like if Will Vest was 100-1, I'd be betting that because he's similar ballpark where obscure Baseball Prospectus does. So Baseball Prospectus comes out with the annual every year. You're familiar with it. A lot of people. I contribute to it every year, and Rob Maines of Baseball Prospectus every month writes. He calls them the Vogelsong Awards. So in Baseball Prospectus annual, every single player on every single team gets written about. And we're talking like 80 players per org, like going through all the minor leagues, anyone of interest. The Vogelsong Awards are named after Ryan Vogelsong, and it is for players, the best players each month who either weren't mentioned in the Baseball Prospectus annual or got a line out. So guys get full blurbs, and some guys get lineouts. There's a full Vogelsong, which means they weren't mentioned in the annual at all, and then there's the half Vogelsong, which means they only got a lineout. And for May, the pitcher, I believe it was May AL pitcher of the month, full Vogelsong, was Will Vest. He was not mentioned in the Baseball Prospectus annual last year, or maybe it was a half Vogelsong actually, because he pitched 70 innings for Detroit last year. It's not like he came out of nowhere. It's like guys like, to give an example, guys who normally show up there, like Shane Smith, Rule 5 pick for the White Sox, Chad Patrick for the Brewers comes out of nowhere. These guys weren't on anyone's radar and now are contributing here in 2025. So they're Vogelsongs. They're Ryan Vogelsongs.
Beauty of baseball, right?
Yes. I'll be curious to see if Randy Rodriguez was mentioned in the annual last year. I'm going to look that up. Anyway, we've wasted enough of your time giving out these long shot bets, these futures. It has been a pleasure as always. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the episode description of the podcast. We'll be back on Monday with another episode of Payoff Pitch, your normal best bets. Mike Calabrese, Sean Zerillo will be returning as normal. Jim Turvey and I should be back around the All-Star break to talk more futures in the portfolio. Again, be sure to follow us in the Action app, where we'll be logging all of our futures that we give out that are trackable in the Action app. So be sure to follow Jim at Turvey Bets. Follow myself at CO Whitchurch. For Jim Turvey, I'm Collin Whitchurch. Thank you for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. Good luck with all your bets.